June 2013. The walls are closing in for Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road. Running out of options, Ross is desperately attempting to procure fake IDs to rent servers to host the site on. He sent $1,600 to a vendor to get the fake IDs he needs. He sent the money, now he waits. At the same time, the FBI's New York field office has made the biggest break of the case so far. When testing the login interface for Silk Road, they discovered an IP address was leaking. Silk Road's actual IP address was found. For Ross, there's still some good news, at least for now. The government still doesn't suspect he is the Dread Pirate. Their sights are still set on the owner of Mt. Gox, Mark Karpeles, as being the mastermind behind the Silk Road. June 11th, 2013. The FBI New York field office discovers a misconfiguration of the Silk Road login interface that revealed Silk Road's actual IP address. June 12th, 2013. The FBI sends a request to the Icelandic authorities requesting, quote, subscriber information associated with the subject server, routing information for the subject server, and to covertly image the contents of the subject server. June 2013. IRS agent Gary Alford discovers something strange on a post from Altoid, the account that Ross used to market the Silk Road way back in 2011. In October 2011, Ross made a post in the Bitcoin Talk forums looking for, quote, an IT pro for a venture-backed Bitcoin startup. In the post, after explaining the requirements for the job, he says prospective candidates should email the answers to the questions in the posting to rossulbricht@gmail.com. Alfred brings this to his supervisor's attention, but it fails to generate any interest. June 18th, 2013. User and Silk Road moderator Scout is last active on the forum. July 10th, 2013. The 9 fake identification documents Ross ordered from the Silk Road user King of Clubs are intercepted at the Canadian border during a routine inspection. Homeland Security agents then visit Ross at his San Francisco apartment. Though he refused to answer questions about the fake IDs, he told agents that, quote, hypothetically, anyone could go on the Silk Road and purchase them. Ross Ulbricht wasn't even on the government's radar at this point as the operator of Silk Road. Various Homeland Security offices and the FBI thought they had their suspect. Now, it was time to interview his lawyers. July 11th, 2013. The Homeland Security Baltimore office meets with Mark Karpeles' lawyers. During the meeting, Silk Road is brought up. Karpeles then offers his information on who he thought was running the Silk Road in exchange for immunity of the charges pending against him. July 12th, 2013. Homeland Security offices from Chicago, Baltimore, the FBI offices from New York, and multiple Justice Department attorneys meet to coordinate their investigations. The Homeland Security office in Chicago mentioned Mt. Gox CEO Mark Karpeles as their main target. July 22nd, 2013. French hosting provider OVH is the victim of a sophisticated cyber attack resulting in their European customer database being accessed. July 2013. Chicago Homeland Security agent Jared Deryaghayan takes over the account of Silk Road staff member Suris. At this point, it's unknown how Deryaghayan gained control over the account or when the arrest of the user behind the Suris account occurred. Throughout the Silk Road investigation, various vendors and customers were getting arrested, so it's hard to give a definitive answer on when the Suris account was compromised. July 29th, 2013. In response to the FBI's request to image the Silk Road server, the Icelandic authorities hand over the server information. Ross didn't know it at the time, but the investigation has just moved to its final phase. The government had all the cards now. Traffic going into and out from Silk Road, user IP address information, private messages between users, thousands of forum posts from the users of Silk Road, and customer and vendor addresses. Ross had something else to deal with at this time, though. Remember the corrupt federal agent, Carl Force? He's been playing both sides this entire time, controlling the Knob account that Ross tries to get fake identification from, while also attempting to extort Ross for the money using the Death from Above account. His requests continue. August 1st, 2013. Carl Force attempts to give insider law enforcement information to Ross. In exchange, Ross was to pay Force tens of thousands of dollars. Ross and Force then discuss a payment of $50,000 for Force's insider law enforcement information. August 4th, 2013. Ross pays Knob Force, 525 Bitcoin, then worth $50,000, for the supposed insider information. August 26, 2013. Force then creates a new account, French-made, and messages Ross, quote, "I have received important information that you need to know ASAP. Please provide me with your public key for PGP." While Ross was talking to Force about the insider law enforcement information, the FBI already started acting on leads from the Image Silk Road server. Using the information from the server, the FBI learns about 2 additional backup Silk Road servers hosted at a data center in Pennsylvania. September 9, 2013. The FBI obtained search warrants to search the contents of the backup Silk Road servers. The government was closing in, fast. With the Silk Road servers being analyzed, the information was making its way to secret grand juries into the courtrooms as the basis for warrants, extraditions, and criminal charges. Up until this point, Ross was lucky though. He wasn't suspected of being the Dread Pirate. September 10, 2013. IRS agent Gary Alford approaches Homeland Security agent Jared Deryaghayan with the name Ross Ulbricht. Though Alford's supervisors failed to generate any interest when Alford brought Ross's name to them, Deryaghayan would not make the same mistake. September 13, 2013. Ross is still in contact with French-Made, ran by Carl Force. Ross writes in his journals, quote, "French-Made claims that Mark Karpeles had given my name to the Department of Homeland Security. I offered him $100,000 for the name." September 15, 2013. Ross sends 770 Bitcoins to Force, then worth $98,000. September 2013. The FBI obtained an order to direct Comcast, an internet provider, to install a device to determine the destination IP addresses used by Ross Ulbricht. September 27, 2013. Agent Carl Force learns that Dread Pirate Roberts is about to be arrested as part of the FBI and Homeland Security investigation in New York. Force then tries to get Ross's name from the prosecutor assigned to the case, but he's denied access. September 27, 2013. Agent Carl Force deposits the 525 Bitcoins paid by Ross for his information into his personal account at a Bitcoin exchange. September 30th, 2013. Homeland Security agent Jared Deryaghayan arrives in San Francisco to prepare for the arrest of Ross Ulbricht. October 2013. Using a mutual legal assistance treaty, the contents of the server housing the private key of the Silk Road website is obtained from the French authorities. There isn't much publicly available information on how the FBI got knowledge of the Silk Road private key being hosted on a server in France. Due to the sophisticated nature of the previous cyber attack on the French hosting provider OVH, that is a likely source though. October 2nd, 2013. Ross Ulbricht enters the San Francisco Public Library just like he's done many times before. Ross enters and then sits down at a table. If you didn't know who he was, you'd think he's just another tech worker in the Bay Area. From a nearby room, Homeland Security agent Jared Deryaghayan is logged into the Service Moderator account. At that moment, a male FBI agent and a female FBI agent pretend to be a couple arguing. Concerned, Ross looks over to see what is going on. At that moment, FBI and Homeland Security agents take his still open laptop away, placing a device in it to keep it from shutting down. Ross Ulbricht is arrested and ushered into a waiting SUV. He will be indicted with drug trafficking, continuing a criminal enterprise, hacking, money laundering, and fraud with identification documents charges. His time as the Dread Pirate Roberts was over. The next chapter of his story, and Silk Road's story, was just starting though. He now had to fight for his freedom in court. We'll cover his trial, imprisonment, and eventual release in another video. The government then seized the Silk Road site. Users to the site were met with this image. As for the corrupt federal agents, Carl Force and Sean Bridges, they were in the clear. They had walked away with over $700,000 in stolen Bitcoin. On July 1st, 2015, Special Agent Carl Force would enter a plea agreement with the government and be sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. In July 2015, Agent Sean Bridges was sentenced to 71 months in prison for his role. As for Variety Jones, after a 2-year-long manhunt, he was arrested in Thailand on December 3rd, 2015, and later extradited to the United States. Convicted of money laundering and drug trafficking, Jones is now serving a 20-year prison sentence. One question though, what was the domino that fell that led to Ross getting caught? Of course, The IP address leaking got the server imaged. There was also him getting intercepted with ordering the fake identification documents. And again, Gary Alford discovering Ross Ulbricht at gmail.com in the post by Altoid. There's also the part that the government isn't talking about. What data did they get from performing those sophisticated cyber attacks on the hosting providers? They possibly could have gotten Ross's identification from there and then used that along with Gary Alford's information to arrest him. This is the story of the Silk Road. The website started as an entrepreneurial venture by Ross Ulbricht, exploded into the largest and first darknet marketplace. By using anonymizing programs such as Tor to hide Silk Road's IP address and requiring users to pay in Bitcoin, Silk Road pioneered the darknet marketplace. Quickly, Silk Road 2.0 was set up only days after the original Silk Road was seized. We'll explore that site more in a later video though. If you made it this far, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. This was so fun to make. If you appreciate content like this, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025.